Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's UBNradio.com.
Oh gosh, you gotta love that audience. Greetings and salutations, everyone. Say again.
Amazing audience.
It's absolutely an incredibly amazing audience, and we thank you for all of you in the audience. Greetings and salutations, everyone. You have tuned in to none other than Dr. Judy WTF, where I am your host, Walt Lusk, and of course, Dr. Judy is Dr. Judy Rosenberg, and WTF is for What the Freud, and we are going to be doing a lot of What the Freud today. We got a pretty darn serious show today, and it's a call-in show, and then if you want to call in, please do. I'm sure all of you are going to have some issues with this one. The number is area code 323-843-2826. And if you want to Skype us, you can Skype us at UBN, for this Universal Broadcasting Network, #2, UBN Radio #2 on Skype. And, of course, we can find us every Thursday here at 8 o'clock Pacific, here in the heart of Hollywood at the Gower Gulch Studios.
And if you download the app, Psychological Healing Center, then you can get on the radio show even faster.
And UBN Radio is working on its own app. They're improving it. They have their own, by the way. And they're going to be able to watch us even better on your smartphone pretty darn quick. And then you can watch us on YouTube. And we got I have a hobby now, Judy. I just respond and check out all the YouTube comments. It's just phenomenal. And thank you so much. We're going to read a few here.
Yeah, and thank you so much for watching and being fans, and for your comments, and even the comments that are challenging. We love it because
we sure do.
You're entitled to your opinion, and so we're all about expression, not repression. So express. And
we want you to not explode or implode, but you can call us and get on the couch with Dr. Judy with your emotional ouch and unload. So, and do that. And of course, we're on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and iTunes, and here at UBN Radio. The title of this show is basically, we're continuing, we did a couple weeks ago, Family Secrets, and we are continuing what may be the ultimate family secret, and that is incest. It's a very tough topic, and trying to find credible information has been a bit of a challenge because nobody really wants to talk about this, and I'm sure we won't get any calls, but prove me wrong, please. And I'm calling it the quiet wound. But first, I wanted to do a couple quick comments. I want to dive in that. So thanks again. Your shows are very enlightening, confirming, and healing for me. Please keep them up with much gratitude and appreciation. And I wanted to make a quick comment from last week's show. We did a show last week on mind, body, and spirit, and a little bit of psychosomatic. I have a good friend of mine who was a Marine and a captain in the Marines until he was injured. He spent time in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And he has PTSD and, of course, is taking some medications. And as a result of our show, I just commented. I said, hey, have you ever tried meditation? And he said, no. How does that work? Well, this is not an advertisement, but there's an app you can get on your phone called Headspace, and it's free for 10 of them. And he tried one meditation for 10 minutes, just one. And he texted me, and he says, it feels right. It's very peaceful, kind of like when you're at church and not in Afghanistan.
Not in Afghanistan.
How much of a, that was just blew me away. It's, he just did one meditation and it calmed him down for the whole day.
Beautiful.
Whole day. Yeah. It's like kind of being in church and not Afghanistan. I mean, man.
You know, Walt, I wanted to share something with you and everybody listening. I brought up a case study a couple of weeks ago about the mind-body connection, and this was a young lady who had lost all her hair. And the issue was every time she disconnected and broke up, she symptomatized it through hair loss.
She even lost her eyebrows.
Everything, every piece of hair on her body.
Oh, man.
And we had our session, and really beautiful. Her eyelashes are starting to grow.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. We're very excited. They're just little buds, and they're starting to come
It's
out.
okay.
But
Sounds all
she
good.
couldn't be more excited because she hasn't seen a shred of hair on her body. And out of listening to the YouTube, she started listening obviously before she started the therapy, but now she's got absolutely evidential hair return.
And that's one of the testimonials of what we're doing here, folks, is what Dr. Judy has developed is a system. It's a mind map system. It's a 9-panel system, and you can go to drjudywtf.com and see it. And it's different than other therapy. Not that we're trying to knock other therapies. It's just this is different in the sense that it's a system as opposed to technique.
Yes, I think that's the distinguishing
and
aspect.
we've figured that out not too long ago.
Yeah. It's not a technique
No.
because it's a pathway to healing. And if you don't mind putting it up, Walt, I'll just briefly describe. I know a lot of you have seen this mind map, and it's also up on my website. So the system deals with wounds of childhood, how they embed, and how they encode into the fiber of our being in what I refer to as negative core beliefs. And then what happens is during the course of life, our negative core beliefs are triggered. And then the middle section of the mind map represents the chaos, the defenses, and the breakdowns that people go through in order to defend against the wound of childhood, defend against their negative core belief, and then all that breaks down. And the purpose of the therapy is to regroup and let the emotional poison out, so to speak, so that people can paradigm shift, have better boundaries, have better ways of interconnecting and interrelating, which is down to panel number 7, 8, 9. So it's a decode your past and recode your future system based on healing the disconnect so that we can reconnect and heal.
And along those lines, in terms of the mind, body, spirit, last one thing, someone commented here, everything contributes to our health. We talked a lot about stress, actually. And your show was like a nice, comforting cup of tea.
Thank you.
That was really
Thank
nice.
you.
And a quick comment, I always like to throw in a little comment. Remember that enjoying the journey is more important than preparing to enjoy the journey. It's a journey,
Thank
but
you.
everybody gets ready to get ready to get ready. No, it's the journey. So
Well, we're on a journey tonight
are.
of identifying a very major wound of childhood, and it's surprising to me how many people come in to my practice and then talk about being abused sexually as children. And incest, as you know, is a form of abuse that's very insidious. It happens among family members. There are different forms of abuse. There's sexual abuse between father-daughter. There's sexual abuse between mother-daughter, mother-son. You know, combine it any way you will. And then grandparents are sometimes the perpetrators. Sometimes we've got uncles, aunts, great aunts, cousins. This goes on and on and on. And then sometimes it goes into the circle of friends, so that people who are around minors who are supposedly almost like more than friend, more like family friend, are the perpetrators. And the kind of damage this does is unbelievably severe.
it is massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is incredibly massive.
Right.
The interesting thing about secrecy, since we're talking about family secrets, makes it easier to abuse children, because
Yes.
beyond, if you tell blah blah blah. I mean, it makes it all the more easier to do that. And one people characterized it the betrayal of trust.
Betrayal.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
a huge betrayal,
Yeah.
let alone validation. And I mean, sorry. I'll come to the word in a minute, but betrayal of trust and abuse of power implicit in relations with children.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a huge abuse of power.
Right.
And of course, betrayal of trust.
And one of the symptoms that I see as a result of this is borderline features. Okay, so BPD is born out of child abuse,
Yeah,
sometimes sexual
absolutely,
abuse, and I'll find in my practice years later people are self-medicating, they're cutting themselves, they're doing all kinds of self-harm, they're sexually overstimulated. So a lot of fallout material comes out of that wound. And then there's another form, another set of violators. Sometimes what happens when parents remarry or they have new boyfriends, the stepfather, stepmother, boyfriend of the mother has some boundary issues and then starts violating the children. So
and they're just
comes in all forms.
They're justifying it because even though they're in a parental role, if they get married, but they're not blood related, and so therefore it's more okay.
Yeah. Right.
So
right. It's more okay.
And we're going to talk a little bit about emotional incest as well, where parents make their children their partner, not in a sexual sense, but in an emotional sense, which happens, I think, even more.
Parentified children. I deal a lot with people who've been parentified, sometimes in general, and we'll get deeper into this topic, when mother is maybe emotionally abandoned by father and the child is triangulated in, or sometimes when father dies, the child becomes the primary, secondary parent, and the son could become like a little husband to the mother, and even a parent to the children, and it's an emotional incest because that's not how the family system is supposed to flow. Very injurious to the child.
Studies indicate that 43% of children who are abused by family members. 33% are abused by someone they know, and only 24% are abused by strangers. So it's 3/4, 75% are a family member or somebody they know, which is the obviously overwhelming majority. And over 10 million Americans just in the United States are abused by incest.
Really high numbers.
That's huge. Yeah. So secrecy and community denial of children's sexual abuse gives permission for the abuse to continue, right? And we talked about betrayal and the abuse.
The secrecy that allows for the abuse to continue.
Yes,
the
very
pressure
much so.
to not ruin the family system, the pressure from mom and dad sometimes. Please don't tell anybody that your uncle did that, because that will really ruin your uncle and aunt's marriage, and we wouldn't want grandma to suffer. And so virtually what's happening here is that the children are thrown under the bus to keep the family secret, and nobody wins here.
No,
really.
Nobody.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, let's throw this stat out while I remember it, 98% of all the children's stories, if you will, regarding this issue are accurate and correct.
Right.
98%.
Right. I remember the McMartin School. What was it back in the day when they said that there were these false accusations of abuse? Children don't often come to their parents and say,
and it was more than one.
Auntie so on or Uncle such has been down my panties. This is not stuff that children maliciously make up. And that's why I'm not surprised to hear that 98% of these so-called reports, those reports are verifiable and they're accurate. And the 2%, well, I guess that can happen too.
The McMartin case was a case here in Southern California, and it was one of the most expensive lawsuits in history.
Right.
Toasted the McMartin family and just a lot of families, and the carnage in terms of the whole thing, in terms of the abuse that they were doing in secret in children in a room at a preschool.
At a preschool. So it wasn't incest, but it was teacher to student.
Yeah, it was abuse. Yeah. But there's 4 things here that the secrecy surrounds sexual abuse. One, as you've talked about, the enormous pressure for children not to tell.
Sure. They
may have to tell several people before they are believed. So it's kind of tough to tell one adult, but now you got to tell more than one.
Yeah.
They may never be believed, even though 98% of the time they're telling the truth, and they may be persuaded to change their story.
By the people who want to protect the family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, and there's a myth that it happens only in a single isolated event. Most abuse continues for a very, very long time.
That's something
and usually for years.
That's something that I see in my private practice is, how long has this been going on for? And they'll say, between the age of 7 and 10. Wow. So many of these occurrences are not one-time occurrences.
Yeah, no, they're not. Now, it's very devastating and profound. Most victims of children incest suffer from guilt, shame, post-traumatic stress disorder, which we may touch on, and which can trigger, obviously, thoughts and feelings that transport the victim back into the abuse later in life. 5% of the incest cases take place between fathers and daughters, or 75% between fathers, daughters, and stepfathers and fathers and daughters.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a dual betrayal in that the child's innocence and trust is ruptured by the father whom she depends on for their safety and well-being, but the child feels abandoned by her mother, the one person in the world to whom she believes should be willing to do whatever it takes to protect her daughter.
And unfortunately, whatever it takes may mean that she has to leave her husband. And that's not an easy situation, especially when there are other children involved, when there are financial issues involved. So really what's at stake here is either you shut the kid up and you keep it a secret, or you tell, and therefore you have to deal, and therefore you have to make some decisions like kick daddy out and even report daddy. And that is just a tragedy in and of another kind.
Absolutely,
because now
it
the
is.
child did something that was the do the right thing,
And
but
they
now,
get blamed for kicking daddy out.
Yeah,
and
now
daddy's gone.
Right, and not only that, now the daddy that she loves, okay, because she hates him now, and feels betrayed, but she still loves her daddy. So now her daddy's in jail, or now mommy and daddy are gone. So imagine the repercussions and the guilt and the shame and the stress of that. So this is not just
It's not easy.
a tell thing. It's a whole shift in dynamics, and a lot of moving parts occur once the secret is out.
A lot of carnage.
Yeah.
But the act itself is not really bad or shameful. It's the attention, the contact and fondling by an attentive parent. Maybe be created sensations that maybe the child, it feels good. And due to this, a child of incest usually ends up with strong sense of self-loathing and unworthiness.
Well, here's how that goes, Walt. I've heard it in my practice. The child is actually stimulated by the sensations, and then the child will feel guilty because, let's say, she or he has had an orgasm, and now she or he thinks that she's part of the, that she's played into this or has encouraged it. So I think the best way of describing this is somebody that I actually heard a lecture from, a lady who worked at a abuse center, and she said, well, if you peel an onion, what happens to you?
Well, if it's, you're pretty close to them, you're going to start crying.
You're going to start crying.
Or at least tearing.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So it's a physiological reaction. So if somebody is stimulating your genitals and you have an orgasm,
It's physiological.
it's physiological.
Mm-hmm.
So the point is that it's not because the child is attracted to the person. It's not because the child wants to have sex with the person.
It's just a natural response.
It's a natural response.
Yeah.
And so it's just such a double bind because the person who's supposed to be giving you protection and pleasure in other areas of life is now pleasuring you, but the pleasure is now tainted pleasure, and the love is no longer trusted love, and now everything is a betrayal. So it's really, really multi-layered, and it leaves people with nasty emotional scars. And for those of you who don't know, we also call this show the Hole in the Soul series. So that's a way to really punch a hole in your child's soul, is to violate them in that way, or to allow them, because we have acts of omission and acts of commission. So those who perpetrate are committing, but those who stand by and do nothing, or worse, encourage the secrecy, are omitting their act of omission because they're not allowing for the truth to come out.
Correct. And what even adds more insult to injury is, this is very interesting, as one person says, that most therapists do not know how to deal with victims of child incest, and often make the situation worse because they enable the patient as a full-time victim, and this becomes a vicious cycle of justification for the manipulative behavior. And then, of course, the results are low self-esteem, depression, sometimes developmental autism, eating disorders, fear of doctors and dentists. Thoughts interfere with healthy behaviors, inability to form intimate relationships with others because the authentic sexuality as an adult, because they have difficulty sharing intimate thoughts from sexual experiences.
Just today I was talking to a patient of mine who was overstimulated early in life, and as a result, she got involved in acting out behavior and pornography and so on. And what happens when a child is too young to metabolize those feelings of overpowering sexual feelings, they don't know how to manage this kind of sexual energy, and so they'll oftentimes use masturbation or sexuality. This is where the histrionic personality disorder also develops, where they're using their sexuality to gain attention, or of course the borderline personality disorder, acting out sexually, and the splitting, the up and down behaviors. But when you don't integrate the sexuality into your emotional world, then the child is overstimulated sexually, and so will continue to seek out overstimulating behaviors and become, for example, very promiscuous. No boundaries. And then, of course, teenage pregnancies and, chaos, and more chaos.
Whatever the symptoms, the child incest destroys the innocence of a child and leaves a ruinous future in its wake. And as I said, they most punish themselves unconsciously because they feel they are intrinsically unworthy. And as adults, they may choose husbands who treat them poorly in careers that do not fulfill them, or make other choices that create a lifelong of suffering in big and very small ways.
And they feel dirty. There's a core belief, I'm dirty, I'm a whore. They believe that they're a part of the inducement into that sexuality, and they're not able to distinguish that their boundaries have been violated. They themselves feel that they're the cause of this.
What I wanted to touch on, maybe very quickly, is if you want, we can go emotional abuse. Because I think that might be, in some respects, a little bigger. Because, it doesn't revolve sexual, but it's a little bit more involved in many instances, and it happens a lot. I mean, there's a lot of divorce and whatnot in families. And this is the article, Quiet Wound. Where did it go? I just had it. Darn, I'll put it here. Emotional abuse, incest, is known as the covert incest, a dynamic that occurs in parenting where the parent seeks emotional support through their child that should be sought through an adult relationship. Although the effects of emotional incest can be similar to those resulting from physical incest, the term does not encompass any sexual abuse. And so that's kind of an intro. They have an attachment to a special feeling because they're felt more special because they're getting adult stuff.
Right.
But there's a carnage to it that has an issue. They sometimes, as a result, they have feelings of guilt and inadequacy because they can't really accomplish what they've done because they don't have the adult experience of doing that. Right?
Sure.
Perfectionism. Again, they're trying to be an adult, but in reality, they're a child. Confusion about limits, which we've talked about. Sacrificial lamb. In lieu of feeling powerless in the relationship, victims run the risk of taking action that places them in places that really put them in emotional jeopardy.
Okay.
Weak boundaries, again, and then attachment to enmeshment.
Enmeshment, that's what's happening.
Yes.
That the mother, for example, might steal the childhood away from the son by parentifying that son and making him or a daughter the best friend and dumping all over that child and burdening the child with too much emotion. And at the end of that, the child is enmeshed with the parent, of course, because he or she feels special and fulfills a special place. It may even interfere with the child's ability to launch out of the nest, because when there's a codependency, when there's an unhealthy enmeshment like that, then children want to hang around and protect the parent, and it's very difficult for them to to separate and individuate, and when they do so, they feel tremendous guilt that they're hurting their parent, and then the parent might actually push back and not want them to launch and find all kinds of excuses why they shouldn't date so-and-so and such, and why they shouldn't leave home, and even why they shouldn't marry, because marriage is the ultimate I lost my child. Oh my God. Now my child is invested in another human being, and then the enmeshment, the codependency is going to be ruined.
And it becomes a much more tangled mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, confusion about power. Typically, the adult and child are not peers. And in an emotional incestuous relationship with the adult possessing more knowledge and experience, this leads the children to be confused about, obviously, lots of different things.
And too much power.
Yeah, and
Right.
given too much power at a younger age.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to touch on that for those of you that want to delve in a little more. I've got some notes, and you can write us at info@drjudywtf.com.
So you can see from a panel one point of view, the boundaries have been extremely violated. And so once your boundaries are violated, it's like somebody punching a hole through your membrane, literally. If you're a cell and they punch a hole through the membrane, it's very hard for that membrane to function properly. And so now, instead of a semi-permeable membrane, so to speak, the person has a permeable membrane, and everything is let in. So all the poisons can leak in, and people who are undesirable and shouldn't even be in their life start leaking in and leaching off of, and then that person becomes a vampire.
Well, not only
they lose
that,
energy.
the membrane can't go back to what it was.
Right, so stops functioning.
Yeah, it's never going to go back.
Right, it stops functioning as a discriminatory element. So the boundary violations create infiltrations, I call them. Infiltrations from people who should not really be doing what they're doing in that person's life, or not even be in that person's life.
And folks, this is a call-in show. So if you are sitting there going, "Oh my goodness, I have been a victim of incest," and you have never called and told anybody, well, you can be anonymous and call us, or there is a helpline for it, and I'll have to find it real quick. I'll look for it. And so stay tuned for the phone number.
And this is another area. Speaking of helpline, it's not unusual for people who are victims of incest to be suicidal. And again, back to the borderline features, cutting themselves, putting themselves in harm's way because they were put in harm's way. So now they're just replicating the WTF or the Freud, and they're putting themselves in harm's way. And so if you've been a victim of such a violent a crime of incest, then just know that there are suicide hotlines available.
I found the number.
And
you're not alone.
Okay.
The number for this issue is in the United States 800-656-HOPE, HOPE, 800-656-4673.
And this is not just a suicide hotline.
No,
number,
it's
right?
basically for victims of incest.
Okay.
Specifically
I'm so
yeah. 800-656-4673.
Thank you, Walt, for looking that
Sure,
up and
absolutely.
for passing that along to our listeners. And I know we have international listeners. I don't think that number will work internationally.
It can work.
It
can work internationally if you can call. There are ways to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, there
Okay.
are. You go through your national operator and you can dial 800 number here.
And
so.
don't try to go this alone. This is not
Oh my
something
goodness,
that you
absolutely
can
not.
cure yourself with. It's
No,
just like,
it's impossible.
I don't think I'd want to do my own brain surgery. Hopefully I'll never have to have brain surgery. But there's some things that are better left to professionals, and sometimes it takes a human being to heal you because it was a human being that hurt you. So we are wired to connect. And so the relationship of therapist and patient is supposed to be a healing, compassionate relationship. And other than the system and the techniques, the relationship itself is very, very important.
Yes, it is vitally important. Now, you talked about suicide, and what I wanted to delve into is some of the major feelings that these victims experience, and we can delve into those, and there's
Okay.
a bunch.
Okay.
first is of betrayal.
Yeah.
Okay, I lost my father, and I lost the sense of being able to go to him as a father.
That's gone.
I mean, it's just
It's
like,
gone.
okay,
Yeah.
it's gone. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
it was later that I felt a sense of grief. Again, it's like it's a death, kind of like a death.
Yes.
I lost my father.
Yeah.
Disillusioned. I don't trust men at all. I was brought up to see my brothers as protectors, and mine were the opposite of everything I had been taught.
You're talking about brother to sister incest.
Yes, I am.
Right. And when that happens, remember who's the cause. And again, I don't use the word fault, cause, because this is multi-generational. When parents are unhealthy and they create unhealthy systems, the fallout material are the children. So parents
we have a call.
Oh, wonderful.
There we
Okay.
go. Well,
Great.
hi. Thanks for calling. You're on the couch with Dr. Judy.
Yeah. Am I live?
You are on the show and on the air.
Hi. Thank
Hello.
you for calling in. What's your name?
Well, I don't know if I want to tell my true name.
Okay, just use a name so I can call you a name. Pick a name.
It doesn't matter. You can even
yeah.
use George if you want
Okay.
to.
We'll just call me Karen.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. I had experiences as a child where my parents neglected all of us kids.
Okay.
And to survive, my older brother had been molested by somebody. He doesn't know who it was. He doesn't remember who it was.
Uh-huh.
And then he took it amongst his other siblings, and it became where our emotional and physical needs of attention and attachment became among us, and it became incestuous. And it was really hard for me to get past that shame and guilt, and the body betrayal that you talked about.
Right.
And also, it was the big secret. And if you tell anybody, I'll kill your dog. And then I come home one time from California, and my dog's dead.
Wow.
And
wow. Like murder as in killed, or a disease happened coincidentally?
Well, it apparently had eaten poison, and they didn't catch it in time, and the poison had made him bleed internally. And I laid on my dog's grave for 3 days, and my parents didn't understand. And they were just angry at me. And I felt so, like I did not tell anybody, and you killed my dog,
So let me get this straight. Your brother was molested, and he doesn't have memories because that's a common reaction to the wound, which is the dissociation and the numbing out. And then did he start molesting you and your other family members?
My other two siblings, yeah,
and
female
female.
siblings.
So he started then acting out on you, yes?
Yeah,
And your other sisters, yes?
yeah.
Okay. And then yeah.
And then this incident with the dog happened, and anyway, it went on from about the time I was in first grade, and then I was about 13.
And how old was your brother?
And
how old was your brother at the time?
he was a year and a half older than me. And I got to the point where I was so angry and afraid of, getting my period and getting pregnant.
Yeah. So
and,
there was penetration involved in this case?
All kinds.
All kinds, okay. Sorry.
He had even been given pornography, cartoon books, Playboys, all kinds of things that he would read, and then he would act like he couldn't read, but yet he was absorbing all this material in his head from reading these magazines.
Sure.
And yet he was denying in school that he could read.
Yeah.
And it was just really a weird phenomenon.
So what is your relationship with him today?
Well, today, let's see.
Do you have a relationship with him?
Well, not really. I have kind of a no contact with all of my family.
I see. Okay. And
because
I just was curious. So did you ever tell your mother, your father? Did you ever talk to them about this?
Yeah. I had arranged a therapist to confront my family and talk about
what age?
the trauma that I was traumatized by it, the whole thing, and that I really truly did not want it to go to the next generation. Good for you. And
wow.
I took that big risk, and there were some things that came out of that shouldn't have happened. Like it was a confidential meeting, and
who
then
was
my
there in this
brother, who was the perpetrator, goes to his wife and says, "Well, this is what Karen said," and blah blah blah, and then she comes and tries to beat the shit out of me, and it's just a big mess.
And was your mother at this meeting? Your father? No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. So it was you, your mother, your father, your brother.
They were just really quiet in the room, and it was like, well, gee, we didn't know that was happening. And I said, Mom, I kept going to you, and I kept leaving notes in the kitchen cabinets that, my brother was hurting me, and I didn't want to be around him when you guys are gone. And
so that she knew, right?
Yeah, and and my gut was all screwed up. So she'd take me to the doctor, and the doctor would say, "Well, don't let her elastic get too tight, or wear her belt too tight. That's what's causing her stomach pain." And it was like, it's totally, it's like, doctor, what?
Did you know that doctors are legal child abuse reporters, and did you tell the doctor when you went to the doctor what was going on, or that was part of the secret keeping too?
Well, see, I was really not understanding what was going on, and I couldn't really say it. My gut problems are related to when my brother touches me.
Yeah,
or when I know that my brother's in with my sister.
Right, psychosomatic. The body's talking to you. So no doctor. Were you going to gynecologist at this time, or no?
No. This was back when I was in kindergarten, first grade.
She's 6, 7 years old.
And I didn't really have the language to put the wording together.
Of course. And then today, how I talk a lot about the wounds and how the wounds create symptoms. So today, how are you? Are you able to have good sexual relations? Are you in a relationship? Did you ever have a family? Are you okay? So just tell me where you're at today. And also, did you receive any help for this?
Okay. Yeah, I've received help. And I'm on a lot of different medications for mood stabilizers, antidepressants, antipsychotics.
Not surprising. Okay.
I've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, also
Not
PTSD,
Not surprising.
Complex PTSD.
Right.
Manic depressive, schizoaffective.
Yep.
I get delusions of I can make this better, I can rescue this, I can and then I think I'm omnipotent and I can control the situation, and it gets me into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. So just remember that this is not your fault. Okay.
Right.
You are not
And when
the
I first
cause.
learned about the body betrayal, and it's like, well, yeah, it's going to happen. You're going to have a stimulation, and it's going to, and it's like, well, it's the same thing with my gut. It's not really attached to my brain, but it is psychosomatic.
Of course
it's
it
A
is.
gut feeling is a gut feeling.
And in your therapy, are you dealing with the cause of the issue? Are you going down to that level in your therapy?
Oh, yeah, it's been hard. I've had to use a lot of my safety plan of backing off. I in this last winter I did cut on my arms twice.
Yeah, not surprising. Are you able to?
I was suicidal.
Yeah.
And my cognitive functioning had just decreased really bad, and my doctor upped my medication for that.
Is the medication helping you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I still get where I'll look at my calendar and I'll go, oh, I have an appointment, and then I'll do something else, and then it's like that day goes by, and then 3 days later I realize, oh, I missed that appointment. And like today I was saying, where's the January calendar?
Well, here it
Like,
is.
no, this is February,
Okay.
and I'm like, oh, but I'm around people that can relate to me. It's a day drop-in center, so it's like I'm in a safe place. I can be there, and I'm among friends.
That's very important.
We're all.
I know that we only have another 2 minutes, but I just wanted to say a few things to you, namely that all the cutting and the self-harm and the inability to contain your emotions is just part of this violation. And I'm really glad you're in a safe place, and I think medication can definitely be helpful to keep you from harming yourself and others, right? Okay, because the extreme rage. And I don't know if you've read my book or have a copy of it, or
I do.
You do.
And
okay.
It has opened up so much for me.
Okay.
And it, like the system. It's I just bought onto it as soon as I saw it, and it was like I bought 2 copies and I gave one to my therapist. And
what's your therapist think of the book?
I'm going to watch you go through this.
Wow. Wow.
And just make sure that you stay safe.
Okay, I love that. Because obviously this is a unique system. Nobody else does it because I invented it, and only the people that I've trained into the system do it this way with the mind map. And but the fact that you're psychoeducating your own therapist, which is beautiful, and your therapist is able to say, yeah, I'll go along with it. I'll watch you. I'll keep it safe. That's amazing that's happening.
Well, and our community is buying onto the sanctuary movement and the trauma-informed care.
Okay.
And it's like nobody knows how to heal trauma. So they're saying, okay, we got all these traumatized people, but it's like nobody really knows what it's like to go through and heal your trauma.
First of all, I know just because of time, do we have a minute, Walt? Okay, so I just wanted to say, in order to heal trauma, you have to tell the truth. So it's the secret, and you have to go into into taboo land, as I like to call it, and hold people responsible, namely the cause, which is, again, I'm not using the word fault, because the blueprint, which is mom and dad, are the cause of this mess, and their parents are the cause of their mess, and so on and so forth. But again, there's a built-in kind of a therapeutic secrecy going on, which I've noticed in my own therapeutic community, which is that people are more interested in talking about the symptoms and medicating the symptoms, managing the symptoms, then getting their hands dirty and going to the cause. So in order to treat this level of trauma, this level of PTSD, you've got to get in there and have people release the unbelievable pain and anger that they're feeling, and to release it therapeutically and metabolize these ugly, hurtful feelings that they've ingested from their own parents. And this is the ugliness that has to be faced. And not many therapists are willing to face this and really meet the patient in this horrific, dark place. So that's what it takes. And I'm really impressed that you're working so hard with your therapist. And just for you to know that we do teletherapy, as you know, we have sliding scale. So if it's important for you to, at some point, maintain your therapist and maybe jump in with one of our mind map therapists and just do a little bit of the work with your therapist involved in the work, and just, kind of like it takes a village, then my team is up for it. Okay. The team is up for it. Okay. So thank you so much for calling in, and you will work through this, and you're not crazy. You've been made crazy by the craziness, okay? And we're all born healthy until we're shadowed over and damaged this way. And so now the job is to clean it up so you can get out of this psychological hell. And really appreciate you calling in. And I know we're just about out of time.
I call it I am being heard, because I would be silent struggle to survive. Now I'm just struggling to survive.
Okay.
I'm not silent anymore. People are actually hearing me, and I don't have to go into crisis to get attention.
And to get heard, right. Okay,
thank you so much for calling.
A lot of progress.
I'm very impressed.
Keep up the good work. It's not easy.
And thank you for sharing with everyone.
Really,
I know
thank you for calling.
there are a lot of people out there who feel the same.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much.
Yeah.
God bless.
Okay,
I hope it helps somebody.
Yes,
I
know it will.
Worldwide.
Okay.
Thanks. God
All
bless.
right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Pleasure.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, this is not uncommon, unfortunately. It's epidemic. And now people get to really hear the inside story of a person who suffered through this horrific abuse by a sibling, sexual abuse by a sibling, not uncommon.
Year and a half older.
Unsupervised. Yeah, unsupervised by
First
parents.
grade.
Right, and it becomes multi-generational because then this psychovirus spreads to the next generation. And I think we're out of time. Is it time to...
we now have to do our song that we're going to do, and we scoured the hinterlands high and low to find one, and hopefully this will resonate with you.
Okay.
So we're going to Shrink That Tune, where we take a song, and this one's a little popular, and I read the lyrics, and Dr. Judy is going to interpret it from her psychological mind map system.
Yeah.
And this one is called The Sounds of Silence, which is originally from Simon & Garfunkel, but it's by the group Disturbed.
So it's another twist on it?
It's a twist on it.
Okay.
Yes, with a
Okay.
little more rage. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk to you again because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping.
Well, in the context of this topic in the mind map, there always is that darkness, and the darkness is the violation, the boundary violation, and so the person here is facing their own darkness, and a vision softly creeping. Unfortunately, in this case of sexual abuse, it's not a vision, it's actually somebody creepy and creeping
it's a nightmare.
And violating a sleeping child, for example.
And the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sounds of silence.
That's such a significant sentence in the context of this, because it's the psychovirus. It's the implanted in my brain, implanted into my body, to the violation, and it still remains there. You can't just make it go away, and then it just reverberates in this chamber of silence because there's a secret there.
In restless dreams, I walk alone, narrow streets of cobblestone. Neath the halo of a street lamp, I turn my collar to the cold and damp. With my eyes were stabbed the flesh of the neon light that split the night and torched the sounds of silence.
Well, the restless dreams, I think, were referring probably to flashbacks and nightmares, and the cobblestone, what a lonely, horrible pathway to walk near the halo of a street lamp. I think, in the context of what Therese was saying, she talks about how she kept hinting that there was a problem. So there was a little light there, but, the mother turned her collar and didn't acknowledge.
No.
And the neon light, my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. Again, she keeps being penetrated and stabbed, and it's penetrating the silence, but not in a good way.
It's like she was sending out little sparks, and they were all blown out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the naked light, I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening.
Well, there it is, not being heard again. I saw people, they may be around, but nobody was connecting to what was happening to her with all of these hints and so on.
People writing songs that voices never share, and no one dare disturb the sound of silence.
Don't disturb the secret.
Fools, said I, you do not know silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you.
Secrets are like cancer, and they grow.
Yes, they do.
And they hurt.
Yep. But my words like silent raindrops fell and echoed in the wells of silence.
Well, again, they're not heard, and it keeps being repressed in the walls of silence.
And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made, and the sign flashed out its warning and the words that it was forming.
I think I liken the neon god to, we idealize our parental figures, so people bow and pray to the ideal of what parents are, and then don't really look at the reality sometimes of they're not gods. Parents are not gods.
No,
they're not the source. Not always a good source.
And then it ends, and the sign says, the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and the tenement halls and whispered in the sounds of silence.
Yeah, so sounds of silence, the chamber of the darkness. I call it the double dungeon effect. You have nobody to turn to. You can't turn to your mother. She's not there. You can't turn to your father. He's not there. In this case, you can't even turn to your own siblings because they're so sick and acting out, and you're just locked in this chamber of silence.
Yeah. And there was a whole horde of feelings we didn't get to, and if you would like to delve into them, you can write us at info@Dr. Judy WTF. Be happy to send them to you. We do have a sliding scale and many therapists to assist you if you can hear our voice through Skype or, of course, phone call, and, of course, in person in Sherman Oaks and Beverly Hills. And that's pretty much our show, and we're available to you. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and you've been tuned into Dr. Judy WTF, which is What the Freud. And you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and, of course, you can watch us on YouTube. And we appreciate everybody's involved. And subscribe, and you'll get to see our new shows on YouTube. And we're going to close out with a song. And until next time, God bless everyone.
Thank you.